You were hearing us before and now you can't hear us anymore? Okay, you can hear me. Or Michael?
I see we're going to go live in 5 minutes, so I'm going to go straight to the opening. Okay, so welcome everyone to this session, RNI Days 2020, on a European Excellence Initiative, support for universities, what's next. We're here in Brussels and online to get some feedback from all of our stakeholders, and basically for you to help us shape the future framework program of Horizon Europe. My name is Gareth O'Neill. I am a principal consultant in open science at Technopolis Group and a researcher in theoretical linguistics at Leiden University, and I will be moderating this session. I would like to welcome our invited speakers. We have Apostolia Karamali, who is Head of Unit for Academic Research and Innovation and Research Organizations at the European Commission. Welcome, Leah. We have Jamil Salmi, Emeritus Professor of Higher Education Policy at Diego Portales University in Chile and a Research Fellow at Boston College's Center for Higher Education. Welcome, Jamil. We have Gerhard Duda, Head of the Brussels Office and Research Policy Department at the German Rectors Conference. Welcome, Gerhard. And we have Per Michael Johansson, who is Rector of Aalborg University, Vice Chairman of the Danish Rectors Conference, and Vice President of the European Consortium of Innovative Universities. Welcome, Per Michael. We also have here supporting us at the Commission in Brussels, Stein de la Rey, who will be helping us with the questions and answers. So thank you, Stein. The aim of this session is basically to discuss what could be the next steps for a European Excellence Initiative that will support the academic sector. More specifically, how can Europe move from large-scale capacity building for excellence and cooperation towards competitive university networks that are inclusive and globally connected? And also, how can our excellence alliances raise the attractiveness of Europe for foreign talents and investments and the general internationalization of the European university sector? Two notes for you, our esteemed listeners. We will be attaching or have already attached some background documents in the handout section. If you see on the browser there, you should be able to find them if you're interested in more background information. And we would like you to express any comments or questions in the Q&A chat section throughout the entire session. We will try to get to these comments and questions throughout the session, and especially in the open discussion that we will have a bit later on. If you have specific questions or comments for a speaker, then please note their name in your question or comment in the chat section. I would like to get straight into our session, and I would like to give the floor to Apostolia Karamali, who will tell us some more about the idea behind the European Excellence Initiative from the side of the European Commission. Leah, the floor is yours, and welcome.
Thank you, Gareth. I hope you can hear me well. Very good. Okay. And I hope the sound has improved because I saw some comments in the chat box about problems. Echo is gone now. Very good. Very good. Okay. So thank you very much, Gareth, for this introduction. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our workshop. And also good afternoon, dear fellow speakers. Dr. Duda, Gerhard, Dr. Salmi, Jamil, and Professor Johansson, Per Michael. We're really very honored to have you with you today. I would like to underline, as Gareth said, that this is, for us, this event constitutes consultation for the Commission, and therefore the Commission is typically in listening mode, and we want to hear your views on how we can design the Excellence Initiative in Europe. So I will not be very long. I will say a few introductory remarks just to set the scene. I would like to say a few words about the policy context, about the program, what we're trying to achieve through the program, and some questions we're trying to solve when thinking about an adequate implementation mechanism at the European level. So let me start with the policy context. This autumn, as you all may know, the Commission is planning to adopt a package bringing together elements of education, research, and innovation. The Commission is preparing communications for the European education area, for the European research area, and also for the Digital Education Action Plan. and also the Commission recently adopted back in July the skills agenda addressing the skills dimension. All this we consider is a very dense policy process this year, despite all the inconveniences of the pandemic. I think we are all trying to move forward and to actually move forward towards recovery and transitions and try to make the best of it and take lessons learned out of this extraordinary emergency we find ourselves. In this policy context, of course, we also have a special focus on universities. We're looking how to empower our universities in Europe, how to accompany them in their transformation, in a very, let's say, prompt recovery from the current crisis. We are looking at aspects of institutional transformation. There is an ongoing consultation process, both on the education and research side, on what can be the elements of this institutional transformation of universities so as to empower you towards the future, towards improved human capital, sharing resources, strategy building, planning ahead, improved use of research infrastructures. I'm just using some keywords just to mention a few things. And of course, on the education side, there are other key aspects such as recognition of degrees, accreditation aspects, and so on. Very sensitive and very important aspects that we need to have. And we have also rolled out a European Universities Initiative piloted under Erasmus, supported by Horizon 2020. And now we have a very dense test bed of 41 European University Alliances. Some of you are already here in this workshop, and this is a very important test bed in order to test in practice these possible processes that we want to accompany universities with. So all this shows obviously that we need to go towards a large-scale concerted action and join forces when it comes to investment at European national level, of course, taking fully into account the autonomy of universities in Europe. So this is, let's say, the first point, the policy context we are operating at. So we're looking into building a long-term vision for the future of universities and a knowledge strategy which brings together education and research together. The second element I wanted to bring to your attention is the programmatic context for this workshop. So first and foremost, Horizon Europe has explicit reference to excellence initiatives. And if I quote an extract, not the full text, but an extract of it, the Horizon Europe legal base, which is very advanced at this stage, mentions, and I quote, that excellence initiatives should aim to strengthen research and innovation excellence, including, for instance, support in training to improve research and innovation managerial skills, prizes, strengthening innovation ecosystems, as well as the creation of R&I networks, including on the basis of research infrastructures financed by the EU, end quote. This is what the legal base says. We have started preliminary discussions with member states, looking at what actions we can launch in order to support the actors and the ecosystems under Horizon Europe, and the part which supports the excellence initiatives under the widening participation and spreading excellence. But of course, the discussion is really ongoing, and we really need to design this very carefully. So for the future, the question we ask ourselves is, how do we design an action under the program which can facilitate the implementation of a policy vision? And to do that, we are looking very carefully at what are the examples of national initiatives for excellence, national excellence initiatives within Europe, but also international examples. And we have been very attracted by successes that we have seen in these examples. For example, raising competition between universities and centers of excellence, strengthening the excellent science base, benchmarking with international counterparts, especially involving international experts in peer review systems and mechanisms. Of course, the funding, which has been quite large scale, the internationalization dimension, the institutional leadership dimension, and also universities' collaboration between scientists and cross-university institution departments. So see, these are let's say, the prompts that we have received And now when it comes to implementation mechanisms, now we have observed, as I said, national initiatives. Now, if you want to bring this to the European scale, you need to add the European touch. So what do we need to address? First and foremost, the geographical coverage. A European Excellence Initiative needs to address the EU member states and the institutions in those member states, of course, taking into account the constraints of the legal base, which provide for a specific focus in this case on, of course, on the widening countries. So the first point is the pan-European nature of the initiative. The second point, which for us is very important, is how we can coordinate all university missions, education, research innovation, service to society, how we can bring all these together. We believe that it should not be only for, let's say, frontier research, although very important, but rather broaden the perspective of our universities. Third point, as you know, there is an ongoing debate on alternative monitoring system, assessment systems of research. So how do we bring this into the picture? Finally, the ecosystem dimension and the fact that we need to address universities at the center. Nonetheless, universities placed in an ecosystem, and therefore how they interact with the other players, and how, therefore, how do we design a mechanism that actually benefits this reality. Last point on my side, in the initiatives that we have been launching in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years in Europe, we have been focusing, and rightly so, on increasing, on accompanying the institutional transformation of universities within Europe and linking them and networking those, for example, through the European University Alliances, an extraordinary and very successful initiative so far. However, the challenge for the future is not only to continue that process, but not to lose sight of excellence in the global context and support the global leadership. So, to sum up my introduction, I suspect I have been a little bit longer than foreseen. I'm sorry for that, Gareth. To sum up my introduction, the question we're asking you is, what is the policy, where we should be where we should be ourselves in 10 years from now? What is the policy vision? And then how do we work backwards through the implementation of the program in order to have a new mechanism, a new European Excellence Initiative that can bring us to this vision? Of course, we cannot achieve everything under this first Excellence Initiative under Horizon Europe, but we should have a vision, a policy vision, a programmatic vision, and of course go through a stepwise implementation approach that can be beneficial and expanded in the future. So thank you very much for your attention. I close my intervention here, and I'm happy to continue during the panel discussion. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Leah. I don't see any burning questions, so I'm going to pass the floor straight away to Jamil Sami, who will give us a global perspective on excellence initiatives and what he feels perhaps works or even does not work. Jamil, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gareth.
You will need to unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear me? A very good afternoon to all of you. It's a great honor to be invited. A thin line between love and hate is the title of a doctoral dissertation written a few years back about the rankings. But whatever we think about the global rankings and their methodological limitation, what is certain is that they have forced policymakers all over the world to look at the performance of their country's universities with a critical eye. I remember the headlines of the French newspaper Le Monde back in 2003, the misery of French universities. Since then, many countries have launched an excellence initiative. That is a large injection of additional money allocated to a small number of universities expected to become world-class. As a researcher looking at these developments for the past 15 years, I have found that both the global rankings and the excellence initiatives have indeed been successful in pushing many universities on the road to academic excellence. Countries that did not have a single university among the top 100 ranked institutions in the Shanghai ranking, namely Belgium, China, and Singapore, are now present. New universities set up from scratch, for example, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, have shot to prominence, and all universities that were living complacently off their past glory have jumped to the fore again. I find that excellence initiatives work best when they support all three dimensions that make a world-class universities. That is, not only boosting the financial resources, but also encouraging concentration of talent, and not only from your country, but also from international sources, and putting in place a flexible governance structure that facilitates change and innovation. So, for example, I feel that the French and German initiatives, which have brought additional financing and human resources, have not done enough to improve governance. I have seen how some German universities had to put in place parallel administrative structures to implement the Excellence Initiative in a flexible manner. The French higher education system is still suffering today from the segmentation among universities, national research institutes, and the grandes écoles. 20 years ago, if you ask anyone in the Francophone world which institution is the top engineering school, everyone without hesitation would have said Polytechnic. But today, I believe that EPFL, Polytechnique Lausanne, which is ranked 78 in the world, might be doing much better than Polytechnic, partly because it has modernized its governance under the visionary leadership of some president for more than a decade. And at the risk of embarrassing the Danish rector in our group today, let me mention that Denmark has been one of the most successful countries because the government has not only given more money and helped them internationalize their talent, but to also transform the university governance in a substantial way. So it is no surprise to see the tremendous progress of Aalborg University, University of Copenhagen, and Aarhus University. I have seen two other challenges linked to excellence initiatives. First, when the overall funding envelope is limited, giving additional money to a few universities may translate into less funding for the rest of the system. Second, excellence initiatives tend to focus more on research excellence than teaching excellence. Therefore, there is a risk of pushing all higher education institutions to become research intensive, which in turn threatens institutional differentiation. But as far as I'm concerned, more institutional differentiation is a positive feature, which you can see in systems such as the Austrian, Dutch, French, or German, with the Fachhochschulen or the technical institutes. Promoting partnerships and alliances among universities, as some of the excellence initiatives try, including the one supported by the European Commission, is a very positive move. It allows the participating universities to pool their resources in a complementary way and achieve substantial synergies. It also allows for mutual capacity building. However, one of the main difficulties I have observed is when alliances attract new international talent. Where does the star researcher find a permanent home eventually among the various members of the alliance? And finally, I would like to mention 5 important dimensions that are usually missing from excellence initiatives. To identify them, we need to ask the following questions. What kind of excellence do we seek to promote? And for what purpose? And because my time has run out, I frame these 5 missing dimensions as questions for all of you today. First, how do excellence initiatives contribute to the social mobility agenda? Second, how effective are top universities in upholding scientific evidence principles? Third, are they promoters of ethical behaviors? Fourth, how relevant is their research to help solve societal problems? And fifth, do they contribute to the global sustainability agenda? And I'll finish with a quote from T.S. Eliot, the poet and literary critic, who once asked, "Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge?" Over to you, Gareth.
Thank you, Jamil, and I hope you all can hear me okay. I see sometimes that the audio goes up and down. I would like to go straight to Gerhard Duda, who will tell us about capacity building in Europe via an excellence initiative. Gerhard, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gareth, and welcome to everybody. 2 years ago, the French, Polish, and German Rectors Conference issued a paper and asked for a national excellence initiative for the so-called widening countries. So countries that we also call modest and moderate innovator states. Why that? There were two reasons and two advantages of excellence initiative. First of all, it is fresh money. Without fresh money, it is not an excellence initiative. And if you look into the widening countries, we have a lot of countries which spend only 0.3, 0.4% of their GDP as public money into the research system. So they desperately need more funding. Secondly, excellence initiatives have one advantage. They have the effect like a Champions League competition for the public. Journalists start to write about universities, which they usually don't do. Mayors are detecting that they have a university in their city, and regional governments are also getting interested and are considering how can we support our universities in such a competition. So these two reasons are very important to consider. And very important also, just to give you one example, for one of the widening countries, 50% of the student cohort every year leaves the country. And these are the best students, and they never come back. So it's an enormous negative effect and an exodus of bright people. So something has to be done here. And what are the preconditions for a successful excellence initiative? First of all, fairness. An excellence initiative that is not accepted by the scientific community as fair has more detrimental than positive effects. And how can we achieve this feeling of fairness? Well, first of all, we need an independent evaluation by foreign and international peers. This cannot be done by national experts. And here the EU comes in any case, even if there are national excellence initiatives. We think that the EU could help here to install and finance an international peer review. Secondly, if we want excellence initiatives for capacity building in widening countries, we have to adapt the instruments of such an excellence initiative to the size of the existing communities. So small is beautiful, and things should develop bottom up. Thirdly, we can discuss the necessary amount for a successful excellence initiative. But most important is the duration. An excellence initiative which has a deadline of 2 years is no excellence initiative. In capacity building for excellence, you should think of a decade at least. So, and the financing has to be provided for such a decade. So, if these preconditions are met, we see at least a chance that excellence initiatives, which also can have detrimental effects, we are all aware of that, and Jamil already mentioned some of them, but still we can hope that this will be a contribution to something that we call distributed excellence in the EU. And distributed excellence in the EU we consider to be a kind of very important goal which we should follow up in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerhard, and I'm going to go straight to our final speaker, Per Michael Johansson, who will give us a perspective from a university umbrella network and a European University Alliance. Per Michael, the floor is yours. I am unable to hear you. I'm just going to check if that's the case for others. Can you just double check your audio settings, Per Michael? Try again. I'll give it another few seconds to see if you can fix it. Can our tech team help with this? What I will do, Per Michael, I'll give you maybe a couple of minutes to fix this. And what I would like to do is to raise a question to you, Gerhard, from Jan Palmowski from the Guild. And this is a comment on diversity. So the question is, was not the background for the German and French excellence initiatives that they wanted to create more diversity? The problem was that universities were considered to be too bunched together in the middle. So the question about an excellence initiative in Europe is not just what we are trying to achieve, but also where we are coming from. And here the answer might be different university systems. Gerhard, would you like to start on that?
Well, my topic was Excellence Initiative for Capacity Building, but of course, diversity is building is one goal of Excellence Initiative, but not in a sense that stars are born and the other ones are lost. In Germany, the goal of the Excellence Initiative is to develop excellent universities, but at the same time to raise the level of the whole university systems. These two things always have to go together if they are to be politically accepted in the EU.
Yes, and Jamil, would you like to add to that?
Yes, please. I think Gerhard very well summarized what happened, what was the intent in Germany and also in France. But I think another way of looking at it is that by focusing on the university part of the higher education system, there is a risk of giving the impression that the other non-university institutions, such as Fachhochschulen in Austria or Germany, or the institutes of technology in France, or the vocational institutes in Holland, are less important than universities. And I think that's the nuance that is important to mention when we think about the impact of excellence initiatives.
Thank you. I'm just going to double check if Per Michael has been able to fix his audio. Can you unmute and see if we can hear you?
Mr. Johansson, can you please check if your cable is plugged in all the way for your computer? We are hearing a buzz, so it's like your microphone is going dead or not plugged in all the way.
Okay, hopefully we can resolve this. I will let the tech team contact Per Michael separate from this. Leah, I would like to put a question to you from David Bomer from Césaire. He said that the European university initiatives, the European universities do not allow for non-EU institutions, and we thus would exclude the highest ranked universities in Europe. Would you like to comment on this? So I'll repeat this.
Yes,
it's more of a comment from David.
Yeah.
European
Yeah, I
universities do
saw the
not
comment.
EU institutions. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Gareth. I hope you can hear me well. So thank you, David, and I see also Jan concurring with this question. That's why actually I will start with a premise in my reply by saying that today there is no strict positioning from the European Commission regarding linking those two initiatives. I think what is reasonable to say is that if we are preparing a vision on the future of universities together with universities, and thank you all of you who have participated.
I will ask you to repeat that. Yeah, I think your net may have bounced for a moment there. Yes, it's now correct. So I have a question for you coming for Alessandro Camiste, Jamil. Perhaps the university rankings, which are based mostly on paper indexing, in brackets, a system invented by the USA university system, which is private, should be reconsidered in the EU, where most of the universities are state-owned. That is a big contradiction to talk about. Would you like to comment on this?
Thank you for this question. Well, indeed, there is a lot to criticize about the rankings. The fact that they are focusing on research publications, in journals, most of which are in English, etc. And I think Europe has already made a big progress in that direction when the Commission several years ago supported the EU multi-rank, which tries to compare and benchmark universities along several dimensions, including their involvement in the regional economy. You may have seen the new ranking launched by Times Higher Education on sustainability. And so there are efforts, and the 5 questions I put at the end of my brief presentation are also efforts to try to push. Shouldn't we take into consideration inclusion? Isn't that very important? The ethics about contribution to society, etc. So definitely we have to be very careful and not allowing the rankings to drive our thinking and our initiatives too much.
Thank you, Jamil. I see Per Michael has rejoined us. I'm going to do a last check. If your audio is now working, can you hear us? Can you communicate with us? We still cannot hear you. So we will come back. Hopefully, we can resolve this. I have a question which I'd like to direct to Gerhard, and this relates to the excellence funding of the European Commission. So what about the Marie Curie actions and the ERC grants? How are they featured in measuring success rankings of universities in terms of international networks, career building, and excellence/blue sky science?
Well, to start with ERC grants, they play an enormous role. We used to joke that if 2 rectors meet each other somewhere and they don't know each other, and they don't know the institution of the other person, they ask, how many ERC grants do you have? And so they immediately get an impression about how they can measure, so to say, the research success of that university. But we also have countries among the widening states that have no ERC grant so far, which is very bad, of course, and which should actually create a reaction by the government in that state, and we are still waiting for that reaction. In regard to Marie Curie, Skłodowska-Curie, of course, it's a measure stick for internationalization of science system, and we love it very much from the side of German universities.
Yeah. I have a question here from Ludovic Thilly from the Coimbra Group, and I will open this to all of you. Per Michael, by the way, if you cannot vocally communicate with us, please feel free to write responses to questions in the chat. So this question is also open for you, and I will read it out for you. So from Ludovic, the synergy between all missions of the Knowledge Square is crucial, but current programs do not offer sufficient flexibility. Hopefully the next ones will. Do you think that alliances of European universities will be important test beds in that matter? And I'd like to open that up to all of our speakers. Jamil, would you like to take that first? And I will repeat the question. So, do you think that alliances of universities will be important test beds, and it relates to the synergies between the missions of the Knowledge Square, and that the current programs are not flexible enough?
I think definitely, and what we are seeing and experiencing during the pandemic shows us that collaboration, scientific collaboration, is even more important today. And in that respect, working through alliance, where we can share capacities. There is also a push for more open science approaches to research, which the European Commission has already been supporting. So I think it's definitely very important. Just to give you an example, I just came across a communication showing that just in Ireland, which is a country I love, but it's a small country, and you had 3 universities trying to compete for research funds on COVID-19. So I definitely think that collaboration within countries and across borders is really the way to go.
Gerhard, would you like to add to
that? Yes. Well, we also think that cooperation of universities is a particular feature of the European university and science system, because we were able, with the help of the EU Commission, to train and practice this for decades. One cannot say that this is a general feature of the world university system. I mean, there is cooperation, of course, but we have a special tradition of cooperation in Europe, and this should be used to link pockets of excellence in different EU member states to achieve excellence also by cooperation.
Thank you. I see a question here from Hint, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Hint Buhasun. Many universities are pursuing excellence through internationalization and opening campuses worldwide. What do you think their contextualization should look like, and how will learning from the local antennas help in creating a global education? And I think I'd like to start with you, Jamil, on your perspective on that.
Well, my answer would be it depends on the purpose of establishing antennas in various countries. Is it, and I think again, this is as a result of the pandemic, we're asking serious questions about internationalization. Is it resource diversification for budget-strapped institutions, or is it really driven by a genuine effort to collaborate, to understand other cultures, to learn from them, and to address specific development issues of these countries. I think that, again, that's a positive outcome of the terrible pandemic we are experiencing, that it forces us to ask questions about some structural features of some of the higher education systems. And I mean, if we look at Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and the UK, or even Canada to a certain extent, where the internationalization dimension has a lot to do with money, whereas some more perhaps more generous systems in in Europe, where international students are seen as part of a cultural exchange and capacity development, capacity building mission, and where money does not play such a big role.
Yeah, and I see that Per Michael has responded in text also. He says that some university alliances are formed between universities focusing on education, research, and collaboration with the surrounding world is the core of the European university. So certainly, yes. Gerhard, would you like to add to that? And you're muted.
Well, just to give you an example, the German Excellence Initiative is based on cooperation, very much so, because the non-university sector is invited to participate. And in university applications, a lot of non-university sector institutes are involved. So cooperation has also to be seen in this direction. What is lacking sometimes in these national excellence initiatives is the cooperation with the neighbor states. Many universities, for example, are located close to the border and usually cooperate with their neighbors. Let's say in the Upper Rhine Valley, it's an excellent area of cooperation between Swiss, French, and German universities. But in these national excellence initiatives, this is very limited and usually not permitted. Here is also a place where some more Europeanization and internationalization could take place.
Thank you. I'm just going to do a final check for Per Michael, just to see if you were able to express yourself. Can you check? No. Okay, that's a pity. But again, please comment in the chat section. I'll read it out for you. I have, well, maybe a final or close to final question, which I'd like to open up for the panel. And that is, from a global perspective, have the top ranked universities become more inclusive or more elitist? And I'd like to take that first from your side, Jamil.
Well, certainly when we look at the US and UK universities in the top 20 in the Shanghai ranking, for example, definitely these are elitist universities. Because they are very selective, because some of them, the private ones, are very expensive, but it doesn't have to be, really. And I think we have a good example with Arizona State University that has transformed itself over the past 17 years under the leadership of Michael Crow, and with trying to maintain a double objective of becoming more research intensive, becoming more open to the local environment, but at the same time being an open, inclusive university. And certainly the University of California network also is a great example. You have Berkeley or UCLA that are top research universities. At the same time, they are still trying to be inclusive. And to link that to our earlier conversation about institutional differentiation, one of the strengths of the California system is that you have many students starting in the community college, and then they are having the opportunity to switch, to move on to University of Berkeley. If I'm not mistaken, 25% of PhD graduates at Berkeley started somewhere in the community college systems.
And Gerhard or Per Michael, would you like to add to that?
Well, if member states want to develop the elite level of the universities, they have all kinds of possibilities to achieve that. If you look to France, the French government decided to create the University of Saklai, which immediately jumped up in our rankings to a top position. But it's a mixture of a lot of different institutes that are put together, and only I think in a decade or so we will know whether this really was a very helpful construction. But if you want to have a higher place in the ranking, it's the way to do it, or one possible way.
I see two further questions, which I'm going to try and get in just before we finish. One question from Richard Tufts. Universities are more and more seen as key drivers in regional economies. How far can engagement at the territorial level be included in excellence criteria? And I'll start with you again, Jamil.
Well, definitely in both the French and the German excellence initiatives. The partnerships that the regional universities were able to form with economic entities in their regions played a significant role. In fact, it's interesting in the French case, in the first round of universities that were confirmed as in the context of the IDEX initiatives, were three regional universities, Strasbourg, Marseille, and Bordeaux. And in fact, the Paris universities were lagging in that respect because it was more difficult for them to have this kind of deep regional engagement.
And Gerhard?
Well, no doubt that place-based innovation requires good or excellent universities, and so the importance of universities in the knowledge triangle and in regional cooperation with the economy is more and more understood. So one of the questions is linked to this: should cooperation with the local actors be part of the criteria? Of course, yes, they should. And the good universities cooperate intensively with their regional partners.
Yep, and I see that Per Michael has also responded. Universities can certainly be regional drivers and at the same time develop into international high-ranked research universities. A final question from Anne Adams. An important objective of a European Excellence Initiative would be to attract international talent to European academia. But what could we expect in serving another objective? And that is fostering knowledge circulation in Europe. So how about the objective of fostering knowledge circulation in Europe? Jamil.
This is a very good but difficult question to answer. And I think I alluded to some of the dimensions in my opening statement, is that the challenge, especially when you attract international talent, is how do you integrate it into a bureaucratic university? That's the downside of being a public university. The good side is that the public good purpose, but the downside is that it's very difficult to incorporate. Certainly in the case of the French Excellence Initiative, it has been one of the obstacles where typically if you bring star researchers from elsewhere, that person has to start at the bottom of the administrative scale and be treated like everybody else. So the governance dimension, and that's why I insisted on the progress that we saw in Denmark or in Finland, where changing the governance of universities gives them much more flexibility to attract international talent and to integrate them. So when we think about circulation within Europe, we have to think about strategies, HR strategies that would be much more flexible and welcoming for outsiders.
And Gerhard?
Well, I can say for Germany that a lot has changed over the last decade. Most universities have welcome centers that are well prepared to to welcome foreign experts and specialists and top researchers. But of course, it also depends on the development of the immigration laws that we have in Europe in general. They have to be welcoming too for foreign experts. And it also depends on the financial freedom that universities have. If you want to have star researchers from abroad, you need to have the financial capability to hire them. And most universities do not have this possibility. And here also something has to be done.
Thank you. I see also that Per Michael just added there that he believes close collaboration with industry is crucial, for example, companies, to foster new research ideas and innovations. I see that we're coming close to the end of the session. I'd like to just close off by asking our speakers to give us a take-home message. I'd like to start again with you, Jamil. Would you like to give us a 30-second, 1-minute take-home message for our listeners?
Just want to repeat that I firmly believe that the future is in collaboration and cooperation and beyond institutional borders and country borders. So these initiatives of the European Commission is really welcome.
Thank you. And Gerhard?
Well, I have 3 points. First of all, fresh money, otherwise it will not work. Secondly, projects have to be developed bottom up. And thirdly, do not forget basic research. So excellence initiatives have to cover the whole range of abilities, capabilities, and activities of universities, and should not be just limited, let's say, to innovation. Basic research should also always be part of it.
Thank you. I'm just going to final check if Per Michael is still on and if he can say anything to close. Per Michael? No? Okay, so apologies for that. We've had some issues here with connectivity, unfortunately. And I will just do a quick check if Leah wants to give a take-home message, if you're fully connected now, Leah.
Okay, I hope you can hear me, and I apologize
Yes.
for my connection problems. Maybe I take this opportunity to answer a couple of questions, if you allow me, Gareth, that were raised before. Yes. So going back to the first question from David and Jan, whether the Excellence Initiative will have full, let's say, coupling with the European universities or not. I think I started giving the answer. I said that we have to have political and programmatic coherence in our initiatives. At the same time, we need to launch complementary activities in order to achieve the objectives we have been discussing throughout this session. Therefore, the answer is that we're looking at different options, one of which is to see whether there's any possible coupling, but it would not be the only solution. When it comes to rules of participation, the rules of participation of Horizon Europe apply. In addition to the specific rules of participation linked to the widening part of Horizon Europe, where we expect to have let's say, strong participation from widening countries, but this, of course, does not exclude cooperation with non-widening countries. Okay. When it comes to the timing for deploying the Excellence Initiative and the Horizon Europe is the timing of preparing the first work programs of Horizon Europe. So we have to see how we are going to scale up the initiative in terms of funding, going back to comments that were raised before, but the actual timing per se is the adoption of the work program of Horizon Europe, currently planned for next year, early next year, subject, of course, to successful legislative discussions that are still ongoing. Then there was a question whether we will or can engage with member states given, let's say, the challenges of cooperation in the field of research and education. And the answer is, of course, we have to engage with member states first and foremost, because we need to have the authorization of member states in deploying any new initiatives through Horizon Europe, through the program committee. But of course, we have to see what is feasible. That's why we may have to sequence certain activities in order to start testing a new scheme and then maybe scale it up in the future. I also take the opportunity to thank the speakers and thank the participants to this webinar. Although I may have lost some parts, we're carefully looking at all the comments. There is a team behind, and also we're recording the session. So for us, this is really precious input. And please continue engaging with us in this consultation in order to, let's say, find an adequate solution to this challenge and to the broader consultation on universities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah. I would like to thank all of our speakers for their contributions. I would like to thank all of you for listening. Feel free to contact our speakers, Gerhard, Jamil, Michael, if you want to follow up on many of the comments that they've put. And I'd like to wish you all a nice remaining Research and Innovation Days 2020. And I think I will leave it there for this. So thank you all. Have a nice day. Thank you for bearing with us with some of our issues. We'll see you over the next few sessions. Gerhard, Jamil, Michael, thank you. Leah, thank you.